Hello, everyone. I hope that you can hear me well. Thank you for joining us this evening for LocALL's Louisiana Legislation Town Hall of 2023. I'm sure some of you are with us for the second, third, fourth time over the past couple of years, and I'm sure some of you are also here with us for the first time. So thank you very much for joining us and being part of our community. I would like to take a couple minutes grounding. First, I'll let you know who I am. My name is Pearl Ricks. My pronouns are they, them, and I'm the Reproductive Justice Action Collective's Executive Director, co-founder, volunteer, and community member to many of you around Louisiana. I want to make sure that we have a moment so everyone can settle in, take a deep breath. We are on a Tuesday, the second day of our week, towards the end of April, and I want to make sure that we are grounded. I would like to make sure that we are all present, and then we take a moment to take care of ourselves. So if you haven't today, take a very intentional inhale and exhale through your mouth. Make sure you grab some water. Make sure you've fed yourself, all of those things, so that you can be well in this space. What we will be doing tonight is making sure that we go over some of this legislative or some of this legislation, proposed legislation, but also to jump into the legislative language so we can explore what it means for you, what it means for our community members, and what that means for Louisiana. The expectations that you can have for us is offering that information as well as some resources towards the end of the night, and I will explain that to you in a little bit. So first, I would like to say that since our inception in 2021, we've had a number of wins. We've been able to collaborate, we've been able to build coalition spaces and build community and also build our successes. Some of our wins include defeating all of the anti-LGBTIQ plus legislation introduced during the 2021 legislative session and for the 2021 veto override session, and also beating all but one anti-LGBTQ plus bills introduced in the 2022 legislative session. We have planned and hosted gatherings of LGBTQ plus people and allies during the legislative session last year during our Pride Day at the Capitol, and we will be doing it again this year. It's extremely important to elevate our wins, to elevate the ways that we build community and the ways that we feel joy and build joy while we are in this somewhat difficult work. For those of you who are not aware, LocAll stands for the Legislative Organizing Coalition for All LGBTQIA plus Louisianans, and we are a group comprised of individuals and organizations across Louisiana fighting for trans rights and ultimately fighting for bodily autonomy for everyone who is in Louisiana, specifically trans and intersex people and other folks that are part of the LGBTQIA plus alphabet. So I would like to give you an agenda overview before we jump to some of our speakers and they let you know what's happening with some of this legislation this year. We're going to talk about the good and the bad bills that we're tracking this legislative session for the next 55 minutes. And then for the last 30 minutes, we'll be sharing resources and answering your questions that you can put in the comments section of wherever you're watching. So maybe you're on Reject's Facebook page, maybe you're on LTA's Facebook page, Forum for Equality, wherever it might be, throw it in the comments and we will be able to see your questions and we'll get them answered towards the end of tonight's session, as well as being able to offer you some of these resources that we have available. For our bill overview, each bill will get about 5 minutes, and the bills are grouped by theme. So speakers will let you know what the bill is attempting to do, if there are any overlaps, and if passed, how it would impact our community. Each bill should be discussed for 5 minutes max, but we'll see what happens there. We all get a little passionate, and sometimes it's just short, and we'll move on to the next one. So I would like to take a moment and ensure that all of our speakers are available and ready to get into the room as we start to go over our bill overview. Excellent. And I will pass this over to Britton, who will be covering our our employment non-discrimination legislation. And Britton, if you can let the people know your name, your pronouns, who you're repping, and jump right into those bills.
Hey, y'all. My name's Britton. My pronouns are he, him. I'm the legislative coordinator for Step Up Louisiana. We're an education and economic justice membership-based organization. I am here to talk about HB 40, which is the employment non-discrimination bill put up by Delisha Boyd. She's from New Orleans. This bill essentially codifies what is already in place by a recent Supreme Court ruling, but it adds sexual orientation and gender identity to the list of protected groups when it comes to employment discrimination. This bill also includes an exception for religious expression, which I assume is an attempt to sort of meet folks in the middle at the legislature. But if this bill were put into practice, it would codify a lot of protections for trans and queer individuals in this state. Yeah, I think that's all I got on that.
Thank you very much, Britton. I would like to ask you, is today there's like some type of anniversary around wage? I think it's the wage legislation. Is that correct? Or was it employment legislation?
It's the employment legislation. You're right. It's I think Sarah Jane told us it's like 30 years or something. It's some wild amount
Yeah.
of time since this was first introduced.
Yes, I just wanted the people to know that. I'd like
Yeah.
for folks to know a little bit of what's
Yeah.
happening. So, not only is this a great opportunity for us to elevate the work of our predecessors and the people who have come before us, but to connect it to the work that we are doing now. Britton, thank you so much for giving us information on HB 40. I truly appreciate it. Love to see your face always. And we will slide to the next piece of legislation. So that covered our employment and non-discrimination legislation. That was HB 40, and the explanation was given to us by Britton Forsyth with Step Up. Next, we are moving to censorship. Now, this includes both libraries and digital access. We all understand how attacks on our information, from critical race theory all the way to the access that we have digitally through our internet providers or through our internet searches, is under attack. Our privacy is under attack. And that doesn't stop with our libraries, the places where we learn, the places where we commune, and the places where we research. So I would like to take this moment to show you a video by Amanda Jones covering HB 360, and that's to neuter the Livingston Library Board of Control, a piece of legislation. Amanda will explain it in a couple of moments. Some of you are familiar with her face through our work on banning or anti-book ban work. And let's get that queued up. Thank you very much, Backstage.
Hello, everybody. My name is Amanda Jones, and I am the president of the Louisiana Association of School Librarians, but I'm also a resident of Livingston Parish. And I'm here to talk to you about HB 360. So HB 360 is a bill written by Representative Valerie Hodges that specifically targets Livingston Parish Library Board of Control. Current state law states that library boards should consist of 5 to 7 members. This bill, what it proposes, is to terminate the current Library Board of Control and then create a board of 9 members. Now they say, oh, well, we can appoint the same people, but there are no guarantee that once they terminate that library board that they're going to reappoint the same people into the library, back into the library board. It also gives each parish councilman control over the appointees, and each parish councilman would have their own library board member. Now, what this does is it creates, in a sense, their own library board puppet to do their bidding. And that is not how a library board of control should work. It should be 5 to 7 members who represent the entire parish and the entire council, not each council member having their own individual library board of control member. Because, you know, at that point, why do we even have a library board of control if the parish council are just each going to inject their own opinions on the way every board meeting should go in the library? Now, I believe it was Lynette Mejia who had posted on the Louisiana Citizens Against Censorship website that this is a complete waste of time in the legislature. And it is, you know, people are attempting to do politically what they couldn't do in the library. They're trying to circumvent a state law. Completely retaliatory bill terminating members of the board that they do not agree with. And it's up in the air right now because I had emailed Representative Hodges, and she had said that she is going to be proposing some amendments, changing some termination. And she said that what she really wants to accomplish this goal is to give 9 members, and she doesn't want to have the other members terminated, and that some of the wording could be changed. Well, I will believe it when I see it, but even if that wording is changed, you're still giving 9, increasing the board just for Livingston Parish to add 9 members so that each parish council man or woman can have their own library board of control member. And that is not the way this works, or it should work. And so again, this is simply a retaliatory bill, a waste of time. And for the party that says that they are not for government control, this is a lot of government control that is being inserted into Livingston Parish Library. So that is why I'm against HB 360.
Thank you very much, Amanda. We are very fortunate to have community members that even if they can't be somewhere physically, they always have our back, and they will send us a video. They will send us the information that we need. So Amanda, wherever you may be sitting, maybe you're watching this, thank you very much. It's extremely important, especially the way that we saw communities across Louisiana turn out to protect our libraries from censorship and to protect our books from censorship, that library board of controls be made of the community, of people that look like those who will be exploring things, who will be exploring the literature of those spaces, whether it be books by, from, or about people of color, Black women, Black individuals, trans people, queer people. It's extremely important that we have that information on our shelves for everyone to be able to access, for everyone to be able to explore, and without obstacle. So once again, I would like to thank Amanda Jones for that information. And I would like to make sure Sarah Jane Guidry of Forum for Equality is ready to be teed up. Sarah Jane will be going over HB 25, so the Library Oversight Bill, as well as SB 7 and HB 102. And just to correct myself, while I'm in the mode, HB is House Bill and SB is Senate Bill. So when I say HB 25, that means House Bill 25. And when I say SB 7, that is Senate Bill 7, as well as House Bill 102. So Sarah Jane, please take it away.
Hello, my name is Sarah Jane Guidry. I'm the executive Forum for Equality. If you're not familiar with Forum for Equality, we are the statewide LGBTQ human rights organization, and we're very honored to be here this evening with so many wonderful people with so much knowledge to share. I did see a question pop up really quick that I wanted to clarify that said, will HB 360 be voted on statewide or only in Livingston Parish? And just to kind of clarify, all of these bills will be voted on by all of the legislators in the Capitol, in the House of Representatives, and if it moves over to the Senate side as well. So it's not; these are not just directed towards the parishes that they're in. So just to clarify that as we're kind of going forward, that all of these bills will have an opportunity to be heard in committee, and then if they get out of committee, be heard either in the House or the Senate. And so as we're exploring the library censorship bills, I think that Pearl really hit on something, that library boards of control and these topics, they're all interconnected and they're all very, very important, and they are all trying to increase power of some and reduce power of others. And so we know that libraries are the cornerstone of our communities. They're places that we seek answers, find information, have resources, we connect with people. And being a shift by our Attorney General, Jeff Landry, and some of our legislators that include Senator Cloud and Representative Emerson that have introduced what we would call companion bills. These are bills that are written similar, look similar, and they're introduced on the House side and they're introduced on the Senate side. And so these two bills are really, they're much more dense than the other bills that are going over library censorship. But these bills specifically would restrict minors from accessing LGBTQ and other materials that they determine what is sexually explicit. So first and foremost, this is not a bill directed just at the LGBTQ community, although the bulk of the books that are being targeted are of LGBTQ themes. So it is easy to look at a community and, utilize them as a scapegoat when looking at the books that are being targeted, but the definitions themselves are very broad. And so this bill will specifically restrict minors' access to what they determine to be sexually explicit books, unless their legal guardian allows them to have a library card that is deemed okay for over 18 years. Additionally, it's going to set a new standard for review of these challenged materials. So what we were just hearing from Amanda Jones in terms of the Livingston Parish, and what we will also be hearing about in HB 25 in trying to concert more over the library boards is basically the engine in terms of reviewing and challenging these books. So number one, it would restrict access to minors without who do not have parental consent on books that they deem to be sexually explicit. Again, those books are going to be controlled by the parish library systems or the library boards of control. So these are localized decisions. This also would determine the new standards that the library board of control would use to review those books. And then additionally, one of the items is that these standards have to be put in place by the end of 2023, and that if they are not complied with, that will then interrupt any sort of funding that the parishes may allot to these libraries. So whether that is through a millage, whether it is through actual funding from the parish, that would be determined on the local level. So obviously there is a financial component to this to enforce and make sure that libraries are complying with said law. So it is dense, and it does cover a lot of information. But one of the things that we have to walk away from is that it also imposes what is it's a regulatory term called community standards. And if a book is deemed outside of the community standards, that means that the parish library system can also not purchase or have that book donated to the library based off of this bill and based off of the community standards. So while we like to dress these types of bills up as parental rights, we really need to stop and realize that this term has been created in order to co-opt and censor queer authors, authors of color, people across the board. This is not something that we should just be considering an issue for the LGBTQ community, but for everybody. And I do very much want to applaud the librarians that have been on the front line fighting this fight at the local level, and really pushing forward. We are seeing remarkable responses from our community members, and to see a bill like this moving forward is really almost a testament to how hard the people in our communities have been holding forward the line, and that we really are saying that books belong in Louisiana. The bill that kind of is a component bill with this, which would be HB 25, House Bill 25 by Representative Paul Hollis. He is a Republican from the North Shore of Louisiana, based in Covington, and his bill seeks to make library board of control members at will. So right now, members who are nominated serve a term of no more than 5 years. They're on a rotating basis. This allows for us to continue to have institutional knowledge within our library systems. And additionally, this would then politicize the appointments of members to the Library Board of Control. So should somebody that's been appointed to these positions that have the education, the experience, make a decision that they feel is not right, that they feel politically does not fit within their philosophy or ideology, that they could then terminate that board member at their will and replace them. So it could very well just turn into a political witch hunt in terms of what library board of control members are allowed to do, and feeling that retribution. I also want to just note in Senator Cloud and Representative Emerson's bill, it does a lot for the fact that librarians and any library agent would not be held liable for any civil or criminal penalties. But even though that's written in there, I do also just want to highlight that that doesn't mean that they cannot be fired, they could not be promoted, that there isn't other ways in which people that are working within the library systems could have some form of retribution against them, whether it's not civilly or criminally. So all of these bills, I mean, they are a lot. There's a lot of information, so I understand that that was a lot coming all at once. But I do thank everybody for being here this evening, for listening to what's in front of us, and I will hand it back over to Pearl.
Thank you very much, Sarah Jane, for sharing information on those pieces of legislation. Once again, folks, that is House Bill 25, Senate Bill 7, and House Bill 102. 7 and 102 are kind of like cousins, partners. I forget how you explained it, Sarah Jane, but they are connected. So keep that in mind. I just wanted to say that restricting minors from LGBTQIA plus info and the bulk of books being targeted being LGBTQ plus and books by Black authors, Black women authors, is unfair and unnecessary. I also wanted to say that the idea behind community standard and sexually explicit, that we have to understand that they're moving the marker right here. So when we think about sex health education in schools, if that's not something that is run of the mill, or if that's not something that is state mandated or overseen, then that can be seen as a community standard, whether it is or it's not within the schools. Social media access and digital security access, which we'll be talking about in the next phase, and that contributing to the idea of what is a community standard. And it's really dicey and dangerous language to get into, especially at a time where some of the folks that are hungry for authority in Louisiana are really trying to stamp certain groups out of our history. So it's really important that we don't get caught up in language like community standard and think that it's going to reflect who we are as a community. We're already setting those standards. We have been for a really long time. And we don't really need politicians, legislators, or council people to poke around in that. We know who we are and we know who we want as the people. Places of learning deserve stability and shouldn't change based on the whims of authority-hungry politicians and council people. They should be consistent. They should offer stability like is necessary in learning for people of all ages. So thank you again, Sarah Jane, for that information. And I would like to get our minds slightly focused over on digital access. I mentioned it very briefly in going over that little spiel that attacks on digital access are also extremely important when we think about the strategy of cutting people off from valid, up-to-date, and accurate information. So I'd like to queue up the path for Anaya Robinson of the ACLU to come on, share pronouns, let the people know who you are, and get into some of this legislative language. Anaya?
Hi, everybody. I'm so grateful to be here today. It's been a long day. Please excuse me. But my name is Anaya. My pronouns are she or they, and I'm an attorney and strategist at the ACLU of Louisiana. I'm also a First Amendment nerd, and I'm very queer. And so I'm here to talk about 3 bills that impact you and young people's rights to access the internet. So the first bill that I want to talk about is House Bill 61, which is introduced by Representative Lori Schlegel. And basically the gist of that bill is that if you're under 18, you can't sign up for a social media account without your parents' permission. So that's the first bill, 61. The second bill, Senate Bill 162, is kind of along the same lines, but it goes a little bit farther. And that was introduced by Senator Patrick McMath. And so this bill, if passed, would do a couple of different things. So essentially, if you're a person under the age of 18, you would essentially be sharing a social media account with your parents or your guardians. Also, companies would not be able to do targeted ads towards you. And people who are not already your friends or your followers, or if they're just not in your existing network already, they wouldn't be able to DM you. The bill would also impose a curfew from 10:30 p.m. to 6:30 a.m., which means that people under the age of 18 wouldn't be able to access their account during those times. And the last thing that the bill would do is that essentially, because you're sharing an account with your parents would also be able to see your DMs that you share with other people. So Senate Bill 162 does a lot. I think that's the nicest thing that I can say about it. 62 and 162 are deeply important to us because aside from the Supreme Court saying repeatedly that young people have a First Amendment right to access and use the internet, these bills are concerning because if you're a queer or trans young person and you don't have an affirming community or family, online fellowship is extremely important for you. And also because there would be restrictions on how young people use the internet, then there's going to be a limit on the amount of information that they can receive. So they'll probably see fewer protests from around the world and fewer videos that might inform them in one way or another. They might be walled off from online communities of people that care about the same things that they do. And a lot of people, they form their political beliefs from the internet and from social media, especially if those beliefs fall outside of the mainstream. So these two bills are really, really important to us. And we think that if passed, they would have a dramatic impact on particularly queer and trans young people in the state. So the last bill, House Bill 77, buckle up, folks. So, okay, if you partake in watching adult content, you'll know that if you try to enter a certain adult website, that you'll be prompted to enter in your driver's license information. So the issue, which this bill was also brought by Representative Lori Schlegel, who we just talked about, our good friend, a couple of minutes ago. But the issue, according to her, is that not all adult websites are complying and forcing people to verify their driver's license information. And so essentially, this bill 77 would authorize the Attorney General's office to enforce violations by finding those websites. Because of the way the bill was written originally, a lot of our partners had legitimate concerns about whether websites that provide, say, accurate sex and reproductive health education would also be liable under this bill. But it seems that the bill has since been amended to focus solely on adult websites to alleviate some of those concerns. So the status of that bill is that it's currently passed the House already, and it's about to be in the Senate tomorrow morning, actually. So there's a lot of issues with this bill 77, but there's two that I want to touch on. So First, the statute doesn't distinguish among minors of different age groups. All that it says is that material harmful to minors. But I think all of us know that some material that's inappropriate for younger minors might actually be more appropriate for older minors. So that's one issue with the bill. The other issue that I want to highlight has to do with adults who may access adult websites. So I just want to say at the outset that people have a right under the First Amendment to engage in and access speech that involves sex. The First Amendment even guarantees adults' right to access and consume that type of speech privately. So, by basically requiring everyone to enter in their driver's license information to access a website, well, there's probably going to be some people, some adults who are of age who probably won't do that because that's a really high burden. And also, there's not any information on how this data, once it's entered, is being kept. And so that type of burden, the Supreme Court has said repeatedly, is unconstitutional. And it's actually kind of ironic. By allegedly protecting children, which is what these three bills say that they're doing, you're impacting an adult's right to access what is constitutionally protected speech, which again, the Supreme Court has said that you can't do. So I'll close by saying that, I've been spending most of my time, talking about the legal implications of these bills. And I also want to say that these bills are problematic for other reasons. I think a lot of times, well-intentioned adults, we want to protect young people. And that is an important interest. But, sometimes our protection can be harmful or stifling or patronizing. Young people, they have autonomy and independence, and they should be curious about things, learning about things, and discovering who they are and who they want to be. And so there's ways to balance that and also support their safety. And in our opinion, these three bills just don't do that. So, yeah, that is what I have to say. I see that there is a couple of questions in the chat. Would they verify your age with your state ID driver's license? Yes. That's how they would do that. And they would do that through the LA Wallet digital driver's license program. So that's all that I have. And yeah, thank you so much for being here tonight. And I will turn it back over to Pearl.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Anaya. And thank you everyone for sticking with us. We are at 7:04, so we're a little bit over a half hour in. And I am, even though we go over this information quite often, I'm really enjoying hearing these explanations coming from colleagues and community members and us being able to really dive into these issues in a public way, not just in our meetings. So this is really nice. I wanted to add a few things, as I do, that when it comes to House Bill 61, Anaya was saying about the power of young people. And if we look at the second walkout that was given by Ben Franklin's students as just an example of the power and the genius and the collective energy of young people across the state, we know, one, being connected to each other is extremely important, but two, they deserve to be encouraged by their peers to shape the world that they want, and to play an active role in their own lives and to play an active role in their own destiny. So I definitely want to echo that when it comes to the power of young people, that's what's powering this bill. There are folks out there that are very nervous that there's so much conversation going on, that there's so much rapid information sharing, and there's so much rapid organizing going on around the issues that impact us. So that was not overlooked, Anaya, and thank you for making that connection. And I also just want to speak out there to the rights of parents and the rights of people to make these decisions within their families and within their homes and to be empowered to do so. It's extremely important that legislators not decide to kick open the door to our homes and tell us how to do everything when it comes to raising our community, when it comes to raising our children, when it comes to co-parenting, whatever it may look like for us individually. So I wanted to echo that and affirm that these decisions should be sitting with us as individuals and as families and not something that should be coming from our state. Also, I wanted to point out with someone had mentioned LA Wallet, and that's how folks are going to be adding their age verification through their government issued ID with LA Wallet. The state of Louisiana had had some type of data breach where their emails were taken over a couple of years ago and held for literal ransom. So one of the things that is a concern that Anaya mentioned on is like, where is this data being kept? What happens when there, not if, when there is a data breach, and how does that protect the information of individuals who are legally and above the table accessing this information? It really doesn't. It kind of creates a track record for what we're all exploring, and it bypasses our right to dignity and our right to privacy that's afforded to us by our state constitution, let alone our federal one. So I'm just very happy we're jumping into this. Once again, thank you, Anaya. And right now, we are going to jump over to healthcare, and we'll be going over House Bill 463, which is the healthcare ban bill, House Bill 81, House Bill 466, and House Bill 152. The first of the three will be given to us by Remy in the following video, and I've been enjoying it. I'm happy to finish it. It seems like other folks have enjoyed it, and I'm happy that you all get to see it now. So I will pass it on to Remy to cover some of our healthcare bills.
Hi, my name is Remy Tallow. I'm with PFLAG Alexandria. I'm also with a group of people, grassroots organization that's been standing up to fight back on library censorship issues in our state. I'm here to talk about three bills. The first one is HB 463. So, HB 463 is attempting to prohibit any physician or medical healthcare professional from performing any gender transition procedures on a person under the ages of 18. They define gender transition procedures as any medical or surgical service, including physician services, inpatient and outpatient services, or prescription drugs related to gender transition that seeks to alter or remove physical or anatomical characteristics or features that are typical for the individual's biological sex, or to instill or create physiological or anatomical characteristics that resemble a sex different from the individual's birth sex, including medical services that provide puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, or other mechanisms to promote the development of feminizing or masculinizing, such as like hair plugs or laser hair removal, for example. They also talk about the development of feminizing or masculinity features in the opposite sex or genital of non-genital gender-affirming surgery performed for the purpose of assisting an individual with a gender transition. This includes prohibiting referrals from any person under the age of 18 to a medical doctor for gender transition procedures. Remember this when we talk about HB 466. They also define, HB 463 also proposes to prohibit the use of any public funds to an entity, organization, or individual that provides a gender reassignment procedure. This includes measures to ensure healthcare coverage reimbursement is not permitted for anyone under the age of 18. Lastly, any provision of gender transition procedures to a person under the age of 18 shall be considered unprofessional conduct and shall be subject to discipline by the licensing entity with jurisdiction over the physician, mental health provider, or other medical healthcare professional. Are there any overlaps between this bill and some others? I mentioned HB 466 earlier. There's a part in that section, in Section 1, 8-2. It reads, nothing in this subsection should be construed to mean that a student is not allowed to seek out guidance for a licensed mental health care professional outside of classroom hours with parental consent. So they're talking about healthcare professionals that are supposed to be able to talk about like sexual orientation or gender identity issues as long as it's outside of school, but this bill prohibits it in a way because it's criminalizing it for children under the age of 18. HB 463, as previously mentioned, deems any licensed healthcare professional who talks of gender transition procedures as grounds to revoke their license. How will this bill impact our community? It doesn't stop the completely unconsensual surgeries going on with intersex babies and babies that are circumcised, some of who may be forced to transition if the circumcision fails. However, this bill will stop families who have worked with their healthcare specialists to follow the current best peer-reviewed medical-based practices for trans youth healthcare, causing children to forcefully be transitioned if they cannot afford to travel to another state or get healthcare from somewhere else. It's likely there will be a decline in mental health of people that the bill is going to affect. It also further criminalizes healthcare professionals for doing their due diligence when it comes to best care medical practices by threatening their professional careers. So we're going to move on to the next one. HB 81 is requiring public school employees to use a name a student has on their birth certificate unless a student's parent provides written permission otherwise. It also requires school employees to use the pronoun for a student that aligns with the student's sex unless the student's parents provide written permission. This bill also provides an exclusion to school employees who do not want to use the pronouns for someone that has gotten parental permission based on the employee's religious or moral convictions. The proposed law further provides any individual aggrieved by a violation of the proposed law may seek relief. And lastly, that each public school governing authority shall adopt policies for proposed law implementation. When I'm thinking about overlaps or anything in common with other bills, I see that this bill in HB 466 specifically mentioned having birth certificates as a method of ensuring enforcement. HB 466 Section 2 states in B-1, no school employee shall use pronouns for a student that differs from the pronouns that reflect the sex indicated on the student's birth certificate unless the student's parent provides written permission. How will this bill impact our community? Requiring public school employees to legally disrespect a child's identity can cause the children this will affect to react in a number of ways. Two common ones that I know of are when someone closes off and builds walls, they become more isolated and anxious with thoughts of not being seen or heard. Some others may act out in a cry for help, and as a result engage in reckless behavior that could have negative consequences for their future or their family's future. And lastly, I'm going to talk about HB 466. HB 466 provides relative instruction to prohibit what a public school teacher, employee, or other presenter at a school regarding grades K through 12 can talk about. Here's one of them: incorporating instruction or discussion of sexual orientation or gender identity in a manner that deviates from state content standards or curricula developed or approved by the public school governing authority. Covering the topics of sexual orientation or gender identity during any extracurricular, academic, athletic, or social activity. And also 3, it prohibits discussion from talking about one's own gender identity or sexual orientation. The proposed law provides that no public school employee shall use a pronoun for a student that differs from the pronoun that aligns with the student's sex unless the student's parent provides written permission. They shall not be required to use a pronoun for any person that differs from the written pronoun that aligns with the person's sex, if doing so is contrary to the employee's religious or moral convictions. They shall not be required to use a pronoun for any person that differs from the pronoun that aligns with the person's sex, if doing so is contrary to the employee's religious or moral convictions. Do I think this overlaps with any other bills? I mentioned before this overlaps with a couple other bills. First of all, HB 81. I think parish school boards are being given instruction, to be the governing authority on this issue, much like they've done in the past. Some of the ones, like in my parish, have done this. HB 466, it reads nothing in section 1A-2 reads nothing in the subsection. Actually, it's RS 17-14 semicolon 412 reads, nothing in the subsection shall be construed to mean a student may not seek out guidance from a licensed mental health care professional outside classroom hours with prior parental consent. How will this impact our community? I think public school employees will be prevented from helping students who don't have supportive families. Public school staff will further have legal cover to openly bully or disrespect, trans youth as well, instead of fostering a nurturing environment that learning can thrive in. That's all I have for these bills. I really appreciate you listening to me. Hope this wasn't too long. Thank you. Please reach out.
Excellent. Thank you, Remy, wherever you are watching or listening from, wherever you may be. We really appreciate you going into that language so in depth for us and also making those connections. A couple of highline items. Biological sex, there is no binary. So let's all remember that when we are basing language off of biological sex and saying that it is very clearly, purely male, female, it really ignores the wide spectrum and the big, wide manifestation that our bodies can take throughout our communities. It ignores the existence of intersex people, and it kind of discourages, how can I say this? It's just rude towards folks that are trans or folks that are questioning to have this idea that all of these laws and pieces of legislation need to be based on an antiquated idea of what the binary within the biological sex category may be. So I wanted to add that and also say that all people deserve access to healthcare, regardless of which path they decide to take for their lives. All healthcare professionals have a right and an obligation to provide all viable healthcare options to patients based on what patient outcomes are, based on what the patient desires to have as an outcome. And any legislation that would prevent healthcare providers from doing that is doing an injustice and a disservice to our communities. I also would like to point out for the name and pronoun bill that it gives parental power and then it takes it away in light of religious freedom. So you'll hear some of the talking points about why that bill is good. And people say, oh, well, it gives the parents more power and it puts the power in the parents' hands. But we know that is not true when there is a workaround to how their young people, how their children can be disrespected within the halls of the places in which they are meant to learn. I want to make sure that we are connecting the dots and we're thinking about the young people who find themselves lesbian, gay, bi, trans, intersex, or questioning in Louisiana. And the legislation that we've reviewed so far and the legislation that we've seen in the past years means that they would have nowhere to play. They would have nowhere to learn and they would have nowhere to build community based off of the language that we are discussing today. So please continue to make these connections. And if you can't think of a way it impacts you individually or someone you know, then think of a different person because there's always someone that is impacted by language and legislation that is this harmful, this broad, and this short-sighted. I wanted to go over to our next piece of legislation. And the next one we'll be reviewing, which is House Bill 152. And we will have Anaya Robinson back with us to explain what's going on with the Anti-Public Goods Services Constitutional Amendment. What can you tell the people, Anaya?
Yeah, so I just want to say at the outset, I know that this amendment, this bill is framed as a parental rights amendment. But I just want to really encourage us to think about what this bill would actually do and how it would impact LGBTQ kids in particular, people under 18 who are trying to access birth control and reproductive health services, and also supportive parents of LGBTQ people. So I'll get into that right now. So 152, if passed, it will be a constitutional amendment that you'll see on your ballot in the fall. Like I said, it's supposedly about parental rights, which sounds good, but the way that we've been seeing this type of bill in other states is actually problematic. So these bills, like I said, they, it's implied that they're trying to protect parents' rights to direct their children's upbringing. But these bills often allow parents to wield their personal religious and moral beliefs to undermine educational priorities and curriculums that have racial justice or LGBTQ plus issues and other culture war issues in it. So, some of the ways that we've been seeing these bills play out in other states is particularly with regards to LGBTQ plus youth. Some of these bills, they forcibly out youth without their consent to their parents, who may or may not be affirming. They also endanger students who can't safely be themselves at home, and they actually impede supportive parents who want to affirm their children. And they also censor curriculum about LGBTQ people and issues. And so, we know that there's also connections between LGBTQ plus liberation and reproductive justice. And so our parents in the our partners, oh my gosh, excuse me, it's been a long day, y'all, but our partners in the repro space have also warned that this bill, if passed, could target contraception and birth control. So young people wouldn't be able to get contraception, birth control, or any other reproductive health service without having to involve their parent. So that's a little bit about how this bill, if passed, and if voters do approve it in the fall, that's some of the idea of the impacts that we could see in our state. And I'll close by saying that the most dangerous thing about this bill is that it's very short and there's not a lot of detail. And as a general tip, bills that are short and sweet can sometimes be the most dangerous because you have to wonder, what is it that they're not saying? So that's a little bit about 152. And I will leave you on that quite depressing note. And I'll thank you for being here.
Thank you, Anaya, once again for hopping on. One thing I do want to say is, so I'm the ED for REJAC. One of the programs that the Reproductive Justice Action Collective has is free or by donation emergency contraception. We give out emergency contraception or Plan B, condoms, and a pregnancy test free or by donation to the people who reach out to us. Because emergency contraception is considered over the counter, or is over the counter, we are able to freely distribute to those who contact us, regardless of their age, regardless of their situation. And I'm telling you right now, it's been a blessed experience to be able to see people take control over their bodies and control over their narratives and know where to go in their communities to find the tools that they need for their wellness, for the decisions that they're making. And I would not want to see that go away for anyone within Louisiana, especially because it's not really a problem. So Naya, while you said it's a depressing note, it's a very realistic note, and it could get to the depressing point, but that's why we are here to talk about this and to make sure that everyone is ready to activate and be mobilized and let legislators know and policymakers know exactly what you want for your families, for yourself, and for your community. So we're going to be taking a moment to allow folks to find their legislator. There's going to be a QR code that pops up soon, as well as a link that will be put in chat, and it'll take you to a state website where you're able to put in your address, your city, your zip code, and it will pull up your legislators for you so you know who you can be talking to and who you can reach out to. So when I put some of my info into the Find Your Louisiana and U.S. Legislators website, I see that Louisiana House District 93, Alonzo Knox, Louisiana Senate District 5, Ruth Duplessis, U.S. Congress District 2, Troy Carter, U.S. Senator Bill Cassidy, and John Kennedy pop up for me. And it'll provide you with a map for some of those options, as well as if you click them, it should take you to their state page. So we're going to give you all a couple of minutes to click around and find your legislators. And I do see someone dropped in the chat, how are we fighting these? We will certainly let you know after we're done with this portion and share some resources for you all. So we're just going to give it a moment for you to do that and explore. All right, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to find out who you got to bug, who you got to call, whose ear you need to be in to let them understand what you want for yourself, for your community, and for your state. You have now taken the time to find your legislator. You should have all of that information available to you in front of you. And someone asked a very good question, hopefully a very spicy question, because we'll all be into it and we'll all be reaching out to these folks together. And that is, how are we going to fight some of this language? How are we going to protect those in Louisiana that are most sought after, most hunted, and also most loved? So I would love to bring back Anaya Robinson of ACLU to share some resources and also some actions that you all can take to let these folks know how you feel.
Yes. Thank you so much, Pearl. So before I share a little bit about next steps and resources, I just want to say that I know that people rightfully have a lot of feelings about the legislature here in Louisiana. And it is still, fortunately or unfortunately, one of the arenas that we have to do the work of justice and liberation. Not saying that there aren't others and that we shouldn't be devoting our time to those efforts. Just saying that this is one arena that we could make some change in. So I just wanted to lead with that. And I'm going to share a little bit of information about what LocALL, our coalition, has coming up. So first, we have a Pride Day at the Capitol happening. Again, we did this for the first time last year, and there's only been ever like a couple of times in history where LGBTQ plus people and our allies have gone to Baton Rouge during session to make our concerns and our opinions heard. So we were really thankful to build on that tradition for the first time in recent history last year. And it's happening again this year on May 18th at 9 a.m. in Baton Rouge. We know that that is a Thursday. It's in the middle of the week. And we're also trying to think through how to make this in-person event accessible to folks. But if you are interested in coming, if you want to come, we're going to post the registration link in the chat right now so that you can register for that. So that is one thing that we'll be doing in a month. We'll be educating our lawmakers, making our voices heard, and also building community with one another and finishing the day out with some healing, because we know that this work can be really, really taxing and it's also necessary. So that's Pride Day. We also have a couple of resources that we're going to share with you tomorrow in a follow-up email. So the first thing that I want to note is that we have an upcoming training. It'll be virtual to help you prepare to testify in front of a legislative committee, because that is one of the steps in the legislative process. It's actually the first one. And so to the people who indicated that they wanted to testify on the registration form for this town hall tonight, you'll get the date, time, and registration information in a separate email. We will also be sending out tomorrow a couple of different handbooks. There's some coalition partners within LocALL, some coalition members who've developed handbooks to kind of walk people through, guide people through the legislative process. We know that this process feels very opaque and it can just be very daunting and overwhelming. And our goal is to make sure that people are navigating this process with confidence and with style. And so we have a couple of different handbooks to kind of make this process feel a little bit more accessible to people. We will also be sending out our friends at Louisiana Trans Advocates. They have developed a legislative toolbox that has some of those educational resources and also direct links to contact representatives. And so that'll be in that email tomorrow as well. And they also have a legislative tracker in case you want to learn more about the many bills that we discussed tonight. So you will be getting a lot of follow-up resources tomorrow. If you want to make sure that you get these resources, please, please, please fill out the registration form for tonight if you haven't already, because that's the only way we'll know how to send it to you through email. So if you haven't already registered for this event tonight, or if you know someone who wanted to attend but couldn't, they didn't register, they might want some of this information, please encourage them to fill out this form so that you can get these resources. So I think that was it. I hope I didn't miss anything, but I think we've got some Q&A coming up. So if I did miss something, then I guess I'll know in like a couple minutes.
All right. Thank you, Anaya, once again. I won't I don't think anything was missed. You went over exactly what you should go over, and you are right that we have a Q&A coming up. So many of you have dropped your questions in the comments from the respective platforms that you're viewing from, and we got to them in real time because our speakers are just so fantastic. They either knew it was coming up and answered it in a video, or they took care of it in live time as they read it and they were presenting. So if you have any questions that didn't get answered, if you have any that are popping up for you now, please throw them in the comments. I want to take a moment and say thank you so much to Peyton from Louisiana Trans Advocates, who's been doing our production and our backstage and doing our getting everyone on screen, getting everyone off screen, and all of the resources that we have putting in the chat. And that type of work, or this type of work, wouldn't be possible if we didn't have our team of folks within LocALL that cover all the bases. So shout out to you, Peyton, doing that, invisible but very necessary work. No one can see you, but we can feel you. And I also wanted to take a moment before we get into the Q&A to acknowledge some of the groups that are in LocALL. So there's a link that just dropped, and we have a landing page now. And I wanted to make sure that as you scroll down, you take account and on some of the organizations and individuals that are part of LocALL. And this is kind of like a thank you, because we go through a lot in this work and we meet a lot and we see each other, but most of the time it's through collaborating or organizing. And I think it's important to take a moment and just say the names of organizations that often come to the table. If there are any that are missing, it is my head, it is not my heart, or it's just not on the screen, and it has nothing to do with how much we love you or see you. Louisiana Trans Advocates, Reproductive Justice Action Collective, Southern Organizers Academy, Forum for Equality, ACLU of Louisiana, Real Name Campaign, Queer North Shore, St. Tammany Parish Library Alliance, Livingston Parish Library Alliance, 10,000 Women, Louisiana Fair Housing Action Center, Louisiana Progress, Women with a Vision, Acadiana Queer Collective, Crescent Care, Louisiana Citizens Against Censorship, and it goes on, it goes on. Please visit that page and scroll down through our partners and our coalition members to understand really how wide our work together is and the breadth of our organizing, and how we all understand our own respective communities and collective communities will be impacted. So when you get a moment, click around on that. And then also, Peyton, if possible, could we have the registration link dropped into the chat? I think since that person asked for it, it has been dropped in the chat. So go ahead and click through the links. I forget the person's name who asked about the registration link, but it should be provided there for you right now. And I'm going to pause and give it a moment to see if any more questions come through. All right, everyone. Thank you for taking a couple of moments to ponder, to put your questions in the chat, to wonder, and to dream. It is, let's see what time we're dealing with. It's probably like what, 7:45 or something? 7:43. I was not too far off. And we have a couple of questions in the comments. So to our speakers, please type in the private chat. We want to come on and answer any of these questions, and Peyton can get you on the screen with me. Otherwise, I'm going to go through them the best that I know how, and we can go from there. So okay, wonderful. Pardon, it's a little backstage thing. Can you put an eye on for me, please? Thank you. So the first question I saw comes from Remy, who is part of our coalition, is an amazing coalition member and had that video earlier. And it is, how can we better communicate to schedule public events like protests ahead of time so we can get larger turnouts? Anaya, welcome. And what I would like to do with this question, of course, Anaya, is see your answer. And also the folks that are watching right now, I want to know your answer to that. So as like an organizer and as a leader of one of the organizations in the coalition, I have some ideas on how we can be communicating, but really this is about how we reach out to you all, how we keep touch with you all, and how we're making sure that information is available to our community. So I really do feel like that answer, a large part of it could come from our community. And this is an opportunity for you all to let us know, what are the best ways to get in touch with you? Do we need to be text messaging, which I'm kind of a fan of, and letting people know what's happening on their phones? Do you actually check and click through your email, and email is best for you? Maybe there are other coalition groups that we can be popping in and become a part of in order to share the information and share the work that we're doing. So while that is a question that was posed by Remy, I believe for the coalition, I want to turn on its head a bit and give community members an opportunity to answer and let us know if we're going down the right path or if we need to pull some more tools into our toolkit with how we are collaborating and letting you all know what is going on. And Anaya, I would like to provide this time right now for you to provide an answer to that question if you have one before we move on to the next.
Yeah. So I am actually really interested in hearing what community members think about this. So I'll say currently the way that we communicate updates is through a combination of email and also through coalition members' social media pages, through posts. So let us know if that is like effective or if maybe we should think about something else. And one last thing that I'll say, if it also feels like you're getting updates from coalition members and organizations at the last minute, unfortunately, that has a lot to do with the way the legislative process is set up. It's very unpredictable and things change at the last minute. And we often don't get information about when a bill will be heard in committee, for example, until maybe like 2 or 3 days before, if we're that lucky. So that's why this process, it's so important for us to work through it together, because we're essentially on call for 44 days, just like waiting to figure out when this bill is going to be heard and what we can do. So hopefully people have ideas and they can put those in the comment section. But is it okay if I kind of respond to some other questions that we got while we wait for people to? Okay, cool. So one of the questions that we got earlier was about medical and mental health licensing boards' views on particularly the healthcare ban bill. And we also got a question in the registration form about there was someone who is a mental health professional and they wanted to know what they could do to advocate. And I think the answer that comes to mind for me is asking the facility or the hospital or the entity that you work for or you work with, asking them if they would consider crafting an official position on the healthcare ban bill and on some of these other bills that can for sure have dramatic impacts on LGBTQ plus young people's mental and medical health. So asking them to craft an official position and then asking them if they're willing to be public with their stance. Because what we've seen in the past is people who support us behind closed doors, I would say, or they support us quietly. But when it comes time to debate on the floor, to vote on the floor, sometimes that support wavers or it doesn't show up in the way that we want it to. So it's a two-part question. What do you think about this? And also, are you willing to be public with what you think about this? And I think also, too, for people who have mental health professional backgrounds or healing backgrounds, it's a really, really hard thing to essentially have your life reduced to a piece of legislation, and to have your life be debated as if it's an object. And so just the fact that these bills are introduced is really harmful. And so people from our community are probably going to be in need of community care, of healing, of restorative work. And so if you're able to offer that type of care, maybe think about doing it at an accessible rate, or maybe opening your books to that if you can. I'm going to check the comment section. Okay, we got some feedback. Yes. Text messaging
Yes.
is helpful. Yeah. From a real phone number.
I'm a big fan. Okay, real phone numbers are pricey. You may get one of those short codes, but we'll work on that too. That's really helpful because I was just having this conversation with someone. It is almost 8:00 on a Tuesday, so I can go into that at another time around text messages. But I wanted to hop on. You touched a little bit on this next question where Frances Madison, please forgive me if I'm saying your last name wrong. Maybe it's Mason. Francis. In Missouri, we saw folks travel hours to testify only to be denied. Can that happen in Baton Rouge too? Anaya, can you please give folks just a couple minutes about the testimony process, if they can be denied, time limits, etc.?
Yeah, so thank you so much for that question, first off. So one thing to remember is that legislators and committees, they can often change and move the goalposts to suit their agenda. So that is something to be on the lookout for. And I've seen that happen in the past. But if you are able to testify, which generally some people are, most people are, you can probably expect a 3 to 5 minute time limit. So that's why we encourage folks to time themselves and to practice what they're going to say beforehand, because you will be cut off and they probably will not be gracious about it. And you can also testify to voice support, opposition, or if you just want to offer information. So that's a little bit more information about testimony, and you'll be able to see a little bit more guidance in some of the resources that we send out tomorrow.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And going back to Rebecca, I love the idea of saving it. That's something that I haven't given thought about, just because sometimes I just see that short code. So I really like the idea of people being able to save the number and things coming from a saved number that they can acknowledge. So I wanted to acknowledge that comment. And also, Anaya, thank you so much for letting folks know how they what they can expect when they go to testify. There is another question. It was asking what type of journalism, I believe the question was, what type of journalism would be helpful? And I have a couple a couple of bullet points, and I would love to know what your opinion of this is also. When it comes to journalism, the thing is people write about many topics, but they may not know about all of these topics. So it's extremely important that there's biologically accurate explanations of things that are happening, that there's not journalism that perpetuates the status quo, which is often incomplete and inconsiderate or disconsiderate of people that are intersex, trans, or having questioning and experiences in between on that spectrum, as well as journalists from the impacted community. So when I say this, I mean I don't need to watch cis het people type and how can I say this? I don't need them to be put on a platform more consistently than the people who are directly impacted to this work, because there is a story to be told. And also, people who are closer to the issue are often closer to the solution. So, something that I personally would like to see is the empowerment and the platform building of queer writers, of trans writers in journalism, and of their perspectives, their understanding of their community and the issues. In addition to that, I think that it's extremely important that we consider, just like with many other careers, with many other passions, that there's continued learning. There's continued learning in everything. And I don't think that that ends with journalism. So any opportunity where journalists, writers, editors are able to inform themselves or be informed by communities that are impacted most, to take those moments and to take that professional and that personal development time and to share it amongst your peers, because it is something that, had we been seeing it in journalism, had we been seeing it in television and movies, then we probably wouldn't be here. So it's an opportunity for people to level up and to learn up when it comes to journalism and how many of the issues are written about. And that includes when good or not so good things happen to trans and intersex people, using respectful and the pronouns that they want to be used and the names that we have selected for ourselves, because those are our names, those are our pronouns, and that is who we are. And it's extremely important to honor that. And those are some of the things that I would like to see in journalism. Anaya, do you have anything you'd like to add?
No, I think you summed it up greatly. Yeah, I defer to Pearl on all things media usually. So you did great.
Thanks. We have that. Also, if you go to our registration page and also the local landing page, which is on the LTA website, you can get in touch with us. So if you are a journalist and you want some pointers, if you're like, I'm not really sure if this is right, or you need some information or resources, don't be afraid to reach out to us. It's what we're here for. And also, it's really important to know who's going to write about the issues in a fair, accurate, compassionate, up-to-date way. So don't be afraid to say, hey, me, I need some more information, or I need to develop this part of my praxis or this part of my analysis. We all grow. So, we want to build an environment for that. Also, there's a question about, is there any resources, or are there any resources available to help draft emails that we are encouraged to send to our legislators? Yes, there are. Those links that I just mentioned, or those pages that I just mentioned in the previous question, the registration link as well as the landing page. If you sign up for those, what you'll do is be able to sign up for every action. And through every action, we send out scripts. So you can just forward the email and fill in everything on that page. You can call your legislator and read that script from the page. It's up to you. But that's one of the ways that we ensure that people are sending messages that hit the points and hit the talking points, as well as doesn't take too much time out of your schedules, because we're all busy surviving and living life and hopefully finding joy. So we want to make your advocacy and your activism as seamless as possible for you. So please continue those links. I know that there will be a resource email sent out tomorrow, and you will continue to get emails about the different actions that we have and the different resources that we have available. Once again, okay, looks like this might be the last one. So it says, do groups have any money to extend for vans or buses for the Pride event? So last year, what we were able to do is get gas cards. We were open to buses and vans, but it turns out we didn't have a direct need for that. A lot of people carpooled. A lot of our community found each other and said, I'm going to ride up with you. I'm going to ride up with you. And that worked out for us last year. So we provided gas cards to ensure that people didn't feel that economic or that financial pinch from being a part of their community and letting folks know how they feel, celebrating Pride Day, whatever the reason was that you came up to support, to be supported. We wanted to make sure that there wasn't financial hindrance. So that will be available again. Last year, you got the gas cards when you got to the Capitol during Pride Day. We didn't have a way to give them out to people ahead of time. So just keep that in mind, but you can expect that there will be gas cards to assist y'all in making it up. Anaya, did I miss anything at all that you know of?
No, I think we did it. Yeah.
I think we did it too. My computer's exhausted, so it's like glitching. I hope that I'm coming through clear. I hope that I've cleared the questions. It looks like I have. Once again, Anaya, thank you for jumping on towards the end and helping me tackle this Q&A section. Thank you to everyone who collaborates within our coalition, and thank you so much to the people who are watching, the folks of Louisiana, the folks that are out wider wanting to know what's happening in Louisiana. Just know that we love you. We got you. To our queer, our trans youth, we love you. We got you. We had a lot of discussion that was hard today, and we wanted to land and end on Pride Day at the Capitol as a reminder that we build our spaces of joy. We look out for each other. We got us, and we always will. So through these times, please get ready to call your legislator, email your legislator, messenger pigeon your legislator, whatever you need to do to let them know that you are not having it and that you love and you want to protect your community. Thank you so much for spending time with us, and we will all talk to you soon. Thanks, Peyton, and thanks everyone else.
Thanks, y'all.